You stand united, both parts of you, your anima and your animus, your male and female side, facing the quiet rush of the river, the green hills, and the barns of your homeland. Spring fresh on your cheeks, the smell of sweet grass and the apple blossoms fills the air. As child aspects of yourself dance and play, your child selves are healed and whole, carefree and cared for. You follow the river home to the land of plenty inside your own heart. You'll never go hungry again. You'll never know thirst. You raise your arms, invoking the rainbow, as songs of praise shimmer through the air like liquid sunshine. The drought is over. The rains have come. The land is green and abundant. You sing your hymns, and 10 golden cups appear, gleaming in the rainbow that arcs down from the heavens above, a gift, not just for you, but a gift for all the world. Today we are talking about the 10 of Cups, the end card in the Suit of Cups, the culmination, if you will. It's the final act in your quest for the Holy Grail, or the goddess's cauldron of renewal. And as a reminder, we are offering the Quest of Cups in pursuit of your deepest heart's desire, a 10-week course to help you deepen your knowledge of the tarot and, most importantly, figure out how to apply its lessons to your everyday life. In this workshop, we will be working on finding your purpose, developing your intuition, calling more love into your life, improving your relationships, and cultivating emotional stability. Best part is, we're breaking it into super easy bite-sized pieces so you won't get overwhelmed. Anyone who can devote a half an hour a week to their tarot practice will be able to enjoy this workshop, and if you suddenly get busy, you'll have the downloads forever, so you can take as long as you want with it. We've also added a live call video for every other week because we know that right now is a time when people really want to connect, so we thought that would be a good opportunity to do that. At $111, this 10-week workshop will cost you less than $12 a week. And good news for our current subscribers at the $21 a month level, this workshop is included in the cost of your membership. That means that this workshop alone will cover more than 5 months of your membership, and you'll keep getting our workshops and our content throughout the year. So it's a very good deal for our subscribers. So whether you purchase this workshop as a one-off or become a subscriber, you're getting a great deal. And either way, we hope you can join us in this quest.
Way up on a wet and weathered meadow, there I stopped a spell. Waited while the grays blew quickly overhead as raindrops fell. When a ray reached from behind me, pointing towards its tapestry, rainbow woven, glowing golden, shone the 10 of Cups for me. All that grows, all that breathes is my family. I am filled and then fill up all the 10 of Cups.
Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special guest this week, Rob Brezsny, who many of you might know through his brilliant column, Free Will Astrology, which I have been a fan of since I was in high school. Rob rocks some serious and seriously hilarious and loving wise elder energies, so we thought he was appropriate for the culmination of our first season in the Emperor year, because we need that wise elder energy in the Emperor year so much. But also because his book, Pronoia, the antidote for paranoia, about how the whole world is conspiring to shower you with blessings, is the feel-good book of the year that our world needs right now. And it absolutely underscores the meaning of this week's card, which is the Ten of Cups, all about collective happiness and feelings of abundance and joy. So Rob Brezsny, welcome to our place between the worlds.
Love being here, Amanda. Thanks for having me. I share so much in common with your way of looking at the world. It feels like we are old colleagues.
I feel that way too. I feel very blessed to have you here and very, very privileged and honored that you're on our show because we're such big fans of yours. I thought we could just leap straight into the cards so we could get to all the juicy stuff. So I have the card pulled up, the Ten of Cups. I have it pulled up here before me. Have you got it out somewhere to look at?
I do.
I thought we could just start by looking at this card together and talking about it. What are some of the first things that you notice when you see this card?
It seems like a culmination or a climax, a moment of celebration and of harvesting hard work that has resulted in the emotional success, not material success necessarily, but emotional success in the sense of having harmonious relations and being in intimate contact and connection with people you love.
Yeah, totally. What do you see that makes you talk about hard work? I'm really interested in that idea and where you see that coming up in the card.
My projection, but as someone who values the art of emotional intelligence and the art of cultivating intimate relationships as an art form, I understand how much work it takes to achieve harmony with other people and to develop, through all of our imperfections and our misunderstandings, to develop an ability to abide together in a way that's mutually satisfying. So maybe I'm just projecting that into the card as sort of my subtext for what emotional satisfaction and success entails.
Yes, you're so right about that. Good relationships do take a lot of work and they take a lot of time and effort and energy. And in this card, we do see that it's kind of a culmination because we see two people standing together, kind of beckoning joyously, invoking with their arms up in the position of invocation, gesturing towards these cups that are appearing above them, and there's children dancing around. And so there is kind of a final moment sense in this card of like, yes, huzzah, it is here, the rains have come and we did the dance and it's all appeared before us. And I think you're picking up on something which is really special and amazing about this card, which is that it is about specifically those emotional relationships and that emotional intelligence as is symbolized by the suit of cups.
Yes.
So if we were talking about this card numerologically, we would say that this is a 10, right? So 10 comes at the end of a cycle, and 10s do represent culmination, as you were saying before, of anything having to do with water, such as connection, intuition, imagination, the affairs of the heart.
Yes.
I wonder, do you have anything else that comes to your mind when you think about the number 10, or does it have any significance in astrology, for instance?
Well, I think that the only really valuable success is success that originates with spiritual grounding. And in addition to suggesting there's hard work involved in the picture that we're looking at in the Ten of Cups, there's also the suggestion that a lot of grace has come from what we might call above, or the goddess, the realm of the goddess, the spiritual realm. A lot of grace has collaborated with our hard work to create harmony that's just not possible for us to figure out all by ourselves with our little egos. We need the goddess's help to make it happen. And to the degree that we invite her into our lives and into our relationships, she can be a creative force that does indeed offer this deep satisfaction that comes from emotional richness coming through relationship.
Yes, that's so true. I'm really glad that you brought that up in relation to this card in particular. I think that that rainbow which appears, which we're going to talk about in more detail later, but that does really connect us with the idea of grace and with the idea of some kind of numinous force in the universe that maybe is the force of love, the force of the goddess, which is the force of connection, the life force itself. And I think, if I'm understanding you correctly, that's what you're getting at with this idea of grace coming in and infusing our relationships. Tell us more about this idea about how grace can come in to our relationships, because I think it often is really hard, and that's what we're working for in the Suit of Cups. I mean, the whole Suit of Cups is really about how we evolve our relationship and how we evolve our capacity to be in connection with one another.
Yeah.
And I love what you're saying about, yes, it does take hard work, but work is not the only thing.
Yes. Well, grace is a mystery, isn't it? It is not always something that we can logically figure out. But I do believe that there is a way that you can cultivate grace, and that is to commune with the goddess, commune with the source of life, and declare that you want to be in close personal association with the source of all life. You want to be with her, you want to speak with her, you want to be inspired by her, you want to be motivated by her, you want to be able to channel her ideas of what you can be doing in the world. You want to be able to channel that in the purest way so that you're a vehicle for her and you're in alignment with her idea of what your highest destiny should be. And I think so in that sense you can, to a degree at least, although it's always mysterious, you can cultivate some form of grace, some sort of blessing that's coming from this higher source beyond our ego, beyond our material plane, beyond what we can perceive with our five senses.
What I love about what you're saying about this idea of grace, but also the invocation of the goddess, what I think is so true about it is that when you call the goddess, she does come. When you welcome her in, she always comes.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that, of course, is the life force energy, that the spirit of love that makes everything grow, that makes everything move, that activates everything. It's also really interesting to me that so many spiritual traditions, for instance, Christianity comes to mind, that you have to accept the Lord Christ as your Savior, which I always railed against when I was in Christian churches, but I think what you're getting at is in fact true. When we open ourselves to that force of grace, when we say that we do want connection and love and intimacy with that force then does come. And I think the story of the cups, which is teaching us how to have that force in our life, and in fact how to live inside that force and to be in relationship with that force, is also about that, which is about that opening up and inviting in and showing up for and relating to that force, which is love, whether or not it's with another person or with a group of people,
right,
or with the natural world, or with the life force of the goddess, her itself. I think you're getting at the essential point of this card, which is that we have to invite it in and be willing to be there with it.
Beautifully said. I completely in alignment with what you just described, and I think an important part of the request or the prayer or the invocation of the goddess's intimate presence is to affirm that whatever she chooses to give us will be of good to other people, will be of some use to other people. That's the missing link. To the degree that we affirm that we want her energy to fill us and inform us so that we can give our gifts better and to be of greater service to other people, I think that delights her and makes her all the more intensely likely to deliver the exact blessings that are necessary in any particular situation.
Yes. I want to just twinkle my hands and send some fireworks up around that. And what you're saying also really connects us back to the card itself and the number 10. The 10s are all about the commune, about the collective. When Mary K. Greer says that the joy of 9, so 9 is kind of a culmination and a wrapping up and a realization of a cycle, but that the 10 then steps us into this communal space, which we've been working towards all along, because the 1, of course, is about the individual and the monad and pulling away from the herd. It's represented by Aries in the first house, all about the individual. But then all of the 10s in the tarot are in fact communal cards, because the 10 of Pentacles, for instance, is all about family legacy and ancestors and how we fit in with the material genetic DNA life force of our planet and our family. And the 10 of Wands is about sharing work and labor with the community, and how our work and our labor and our actions affect others. And the 10 of Swords, of course, is about communal victories and defeats, or to put it in a less warlike terminology, communal abundance and deprivation, or healing and disease, which is something that we're thinking a lot about now in our culture. And so I think that it's really interesting and important that you already arrived at that with this card, that, when we invite grace in, which is the fountain, the bubbling fountain, the life force energy that comes up from the center of the earth, that it's not just for our own pleasure, but that it's so that we can be of greater service.
Yes, exactly. And I like the fact that you're interpreting the card as being about the collective, because a lot of interpretations of this card concentrate on its meaning for the family, the nuclear family, or the extended immediate family. But I really agree with you that it's about the human family. It's about our connection with the human family and with our community. And I think that there's a way in which being attached to one's nuclear family is just a little bit higher form of egotism, whereas being devoted to the good of the community, to the good of the human family, takes us right out of the potential selfishness of being devoted to our tribe, and refocuses us on what's good for everybody, what's good for all the creatures in our realm, the animals and the plants, as well as the people. I see this card, this is one of the ways in which using the card as a tutelary for today expanded my vision of what this card is about. It's really about our collective good, and about feeling viscerally our connection to all the creatures of the world, not just thinking that, but feeling it. And of all the terrible things that this shared global crisis is bringing, one of the good things it's bringing is this really felt, palpable sense of how interconnected we are, of how any one person's joy and goodness and abundance is absolutely dependent on everyone else's. If this shared global crisis can do nothing but that, I think that's a great gift.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's so important what you're saying, especially that about, if we're considering the nuclear family really just a step above our own individualism, specifically within Western culture, like, oh, I will make a lot of money and then I will give it to my children so that they will be okay. But we don't care what happens to the children next door, or the children who were living on this land when we took it from
Right.
the indigenous people that were living here, for instance. I have really felt palpably as well that this virus is making more clear than ever, although I think it should have been clear to us the entire time, that we are all connected, and that what we do to one, what we do to one person, we do to all of us. What happens to us happens to everyone.
Yep.
And that our fates are all intertwined, and that we can't just continue to think about what is good for me, or what is good for my son, or what is good for my neighborhood and no one else, but that the only way for the life force to come out, and only way for the goddess to continue her great adventure and exist, is when we consider the ecosystem of the whole. And so I guess we might say that the 10 is always about ecosystem, and the 1 maybe is then about the individual creature within that ecosystem, And then the moving through the system of the numerology of the cards is about coming to that awareness that we are all connected and together.
Yes, exactly. And just a nuance, it's the nuclear family is just above egotism. Our neighborhood is just above the family, and the next just above, but another form of egotism is our tribe. Those people who are like us, whether that's we as Americans or we have to go even higher above that, and that's one of the virtues of what's the virus is making so clear is that we can't be too attached even to our tribe, even to the people who are like us. We have to embrace the entire world, knowing that we're all in this very tightly interconnected system that depends on everybody contributing.
Well, I think what you're getting at is very important, in that I think that a lot of people have seen that and did know that, but it seems that particularly for the wealthy and the powerful and the privileged who maybe haven't really had to think about that before, that this is really making it clear that it's never been acceptable for us to just neglect the needs of other people, other elements, whether it's the waters or the trees or the animals. It's never been okay. That's never been acceptable. But I am hoping and working towards making it so that this situation does bring awareness and healing, even amidst all the devastation that it's wreaking for the most vulnerable people, in particular on the planet. The tarot does speak to this all the time, that cycles are spirals, and that the 10 is also a 1. It's also a new beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though we come to the end, in those endings and in that falling apart and in the dissolution, there is always rebirth that's happening as well. I want to kind of zoom back in to the card focus here. Specifically, we're talking about this because this is the 10 of Cups, so it's in relation to water. And I'm wondering if you have thoughts about, for instance, how the element of water, the water signs within astrology, operate, or what they're bringing us, or what their wisdom is, and how we might apply that to the suit of cups in the tarot.
Well, a lot of people in our culture are smart intellectually, but not very smart emotionally. The emotional intelligence is just not very highly valued, and it's sort of related to how women are devalued. It's not just that, of course, that women are the only ones who have emotional intelligence, but they're more likely to be emotionally intelligent than most men. So the devaluation of the feminine is related to the devaluation of the power of the emotions, of the wisdom of the emotions, and to me, that's one of my great crusades is to champion the suit of cups, in a sense, to champion the value of ripening our emotional understanding, of using our emotional understanding to enrich our relationships and to enrich our understanding of how the world works. Just one example, it's great to have an intellectual understanding of the goddess and the source of all life beyond the material world, but it's another thing to have an emotional connection to the goddess and to cultivate that intimate, up close, deeply felt contact and communion with her. And luckily, I was born into the sign of Cancer, and I think that gives me a predilection for valuing the felt sense and championing the felt sense. I just wanted to say one other thing, which is just imagine if we valued a cultivation of the felt loving sense with the natural world, with animals and plants. So we're not just being scolded, oh, we've got to stop committing ecocide against the environment, but we were shown, we were taught, we valued nourishing our emotional connection with animals and plants. To me, that's the missing link in what needs to be done to save the environment as a beautiful place for human beings. We need to develop that felt sense.
That's so beautiful. I love that, thinking about then how the suit of cups is really teaching us how to value the felt sense and that connection, those relationships with one another, and that it's not teaching us how to value that intellectually, or how to intellectually make those connections, or how we to say like something like, scientists have proven that friendship is good for you, or love is good for you, orgasms are good for you, or whatever. That it's like, no, this is about feeling it, about being inside that, about intimately connecting with that. And that this card is the culmination of that knowledge, is about how to do true intimacy, which is a feeling connection, is an emotional connection. Well, so this card is represented by Mars in Pisces, and I was wondering if you could speak to that idea a little bit about when Mars is in Pisces, what does that mean, and how does that apply to some of the things that we've been talking about here?
As far as the Mars in Pisces, I think it's sort of complicated to talk about, but Mars is, in the Kabbalah, Mars is that force which destroys in order to renew. And one of the points here is that in order to cultivate this intimate relationship with the goddess and all of creation, and with the natural world and all the people who are cells in the body of the goddess as we are, in order to do that, we have to die to certain ignorant attitudes that we harbor about our natures. For instance, we're not just our ego, we're not just our habits, we're not just our tribe. Those all have to die, in a sense. They have to fade away so that we can come to this full Ten of Cups celebration of oneness with all of creation. We have to die to our little selves and to our little tribal jealousies and angers, and we have to open up to this ongoing intimate relationship with the goddess, who reveals to us that we're all interconnected. And so there is some death involved in being able to achieve this Ten of Cups state, this plenitude, this abundance. So that's the interesting shadow to this card in my view.
Yeah, I see that and I feel that, and there is a lot, for certainly, for Western American capitalist people who have been raised as we have in that world, particularly with the amount of privileges that you and I both have in this culture, that part of ourselves does have to die, and I wish it a swift and peaceful passing, like goodbye. So that part of ourselves does have to die in order to be reborn to the collective. And I've mentioned this a lot on this podcast, but it reminds me of Fred Moten's idea of consenting to not be an individual being, that we're consenting to be a collective being. And I'm also thinking about Mars as emotional strength, and I do see that, or Mars in Pisces as emotional, Pisces being emotional, and Mars being about strength, that we do get emotional strength from our love of the collective.
Beautiful.
And that we are given the strength to do extraordinary things when we are doing it on behalf of the collective.
I love that.
When we have that felt sense of love for other people, for the natural world, then it's not a question of whether or not we should or shouldn't do something for a profit. It's like, well, of course we don't, because we care.
Exactly.
One last thing I wanted to say about that was, last night I was doing a meditation with someone that I'm involved with activism work, and she was saying that in Buddhism there's this meditation that you do on pain, where you feel whatever pain is going on in your body, like your back pain or your heartbreak or your toothache, and you tune into that pain, and then you imagine that you're experiencing it so that someone else doesn't have to. Like you're imagining like your toothache, by you experiencing that, someone else won't have to experience it, and that it makes the pain bearable because you are doing it for love, like you're doing it on behalf of love. And so I feel like that does speak to Mars in Pisces, that kind of valiance on behalf of love.
It's interesting that if we look at the history of the god Mars, originally he was a protector of the fields and protector of women and children.
Ah.
And this is at a time in ancient Rome when most of the men were farmers. But as Rome became an empire and more farmers became soldiers, the role of Mars shifted to be more warlike and militant and warrior-like. But the original role of Mars was to be a protector of women and children and nature. I think that what you said plays to that idea very well. Mars as a protector of the natural world, of our ability to flourish as feeling beings. I would just like to resurrect that archetype of Mars.
Well, yeah, and Mars and Aries both correspond to the Emperor, which this is an Emperor year, and we've been talking a lot on this podcast about how what we want to do is resurrect this idea of the Emperor as the steward of nature or the lover of the goddess. We could go on and talk about this for a really long time, and I would love to do that, but there are so many other points that I want to hit here, so I want to kind of push us and drive us forward. I want to talk about some of the symbols of the card, 3 things in particular. The river that appears in the card, we're talking about the Rider-Waite Coleman-Smith version of the deck, which is the most commonly used. The rainbow and the cups appearing in the sky. So let's start with the river. I'm thinking about the river as emotional movement or flow, and I'm wondering if you could speak to what comes up for you when you think of rivers.
Well, I think it was Herodotus. No, it was Heraclitus in the ancient Greek. You never step in the same river twice, and the river is always changing, and yet it is always water. And I love that notion that nothing ever repeats. No experience ever repeats. History is always a flow of ever-changing events, and even the person that I love that I saw yesterday is different today, and in ways that maybe I can see to a certain extent, some ways that are mysterious to me. And I guess the bigger picture of that is in my philosophy of life, my felt philosophy of life, the goddess and the god together are literally recreating the world every moment. They didn't create the world once upon a time 4.6 billion years ago. They're here now, recreating it all the time, and so each moment is new and unpredictable. And that can be scary, but it can be a liberation. I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh who said, you know, the bad news is that everything's impermanent. The good news is that everything is impermanent. And what he meant by that, the good news is that we can keep recreating things anew. We don't have to be bound by what happened once upon a time or yesterday. We really do, at least potentially, have the power to be like the river and be ever flowing.
Mm. Mm-mm. Yes, more twinkling, more fireworks. I see that so much too. And I love that about the river as being an invitation to be constantly present. Mm-hmm. Like to know that when we're encountering another person, for instance, we're not stepping into the same river twice. There's always something new. There's always new movement. And I'm also thinking about the idea of the rivers as coming from a sacred source, you know, like the Ganges or something, mm-hmm. that the river is coming to us from source, and it flows through the suit of cups. You know, so for instance, when we're in the 5 of Cups, which is the grief card, we've crossed the river of sorrows, into this wild, formidable land. And then in the 10 of Cups, it's like we've crossed back over that river and have arrived back at our home. And I'm thinking about how rivers are boundaries between worlds, between realms that we're stepping in and wading out of. But the river ultimately comes from source, which is also always calling us back to the present moment and the miracle and the beauty and sometimes the horror and the hurt, but also the sacredness of it constantly, just calling us back to the sacred all the time.
Indeed, it's every new moment is a chance to dwell in the sacred in a way we've never dwelled in the sacred before.
And then The rainbow, of course, is another gift of the water, right? As the light from the sun or the light of the moon shimmers through the water that is hanging in the air and gives us this spectrum of color and light. And I feel like that points back to something that you had said at the beginning of the episode, which was about grace and the uniting of the spiritual and the material realms. And I think of that definitely with the rainbow in many traditions, many mythologies. The rainbow is the bridge between the visible and the invisible realms, or between the collective and the individual, or even the natural and the supernatural.
There is that image of the rainbow bridge as the connecting link between worlds.
Yes, absolutely it is. And it often signals the entrance to the fairy realms, or
Right.
the entrance to the realms of enchantments, or the other world, or the flower world. The rainbow appears. I was thinking of Iris, the Greek messenger goddess who travels across the rainbow bridge, bringing messages to mortals from the divine beings on Mount Olympus. And so there's this message from the divine that comes to us on the rainbow, and that then appears in this card, that we are getting messages from the sacred or from grace about reconnecting.
Right.
About being here, being fully present for our collective good.
And I like that you mentioned the fairyland, because in my understanding, we mostly live, when we're conscious, in this real world, but there is the other real world, which we customarily visit every night in our dreams, and that we can visit in our meditations and times of vision. And that other real world isn't some blank, abstract, sterile place. It's full of activity and delightful events and color and the kinds of things that happen in fairy tales, and the kinds of things that happen in our dreams every night, which are totally unpredictable and always changing and mysterious. And so the fairy realm, which we're connected to by the Rainbow Bridge, is potentially, it's not all that, but it's potentially a realm of delight that's very different from the material world.
Yes. It's the realm of enchantment, and the realm of the imagination, and the realm of the collective unconscious, and the place from which all stories emerge into physical reality in that dream time.
And as the poet Muriel Rukeyser says, the world's not made of atoms, the world's made of stories. And the stories get cooked up over there in the other real world. And they get sent here by Iris, they brought here by Iris and translated down. And it would be wise for all of us. I mean, I do this. I've been paying attention to my dreams pretty much since I was 12 years old. And I think that any emotional intelligence that I have is in part due to the fact that I've dwelt consciously in the dream realm night after night for many years, and I've not always been able to return from the realm of dreams with some useful psychological information that I can use to change my life, although sometimes I do. But just the joy of those amazing stories that happen over there. They're so perplexing and interesting and unexpected. To me, that has enriched my emotional life greatly, and I think it's been really important for my life as a creative artist. And I would really recommend to everybody in the world pretty much to have a pretty ongoing, intimate connection with their dreams.
Yes, and I love that the cups in the sky come out of this rainbow, this dream connection.
Yeah.
You know, they're appearing there as these final gifts for us in this quest of the cups, where we are in pursuit of what has the most meaning for us, in the pursuit of our heart connection to the divine and to grace. And well, so I just wanted to wrap up this first section half here by just encapsulating what we then would say, you know, if this card comes up in a reading, what it means for people, or what they might look out for, or what they might be being called to think about or do in their life.
Well, I think you touched on something just a moment ago, which is crucial to this, which is what has meaning for you. And really, when we talk about happiness, to me, that's about what has meaning to you. Happiness isn't about necessarily having all the delicious foods you want to eat and all the money you want, although it can be related to that. But I think happiness in its purest form is that you're living a life with meaning, or you're having experiences that satisfy your quest for meaning. The Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl said this really clearly, that that was the most important thing in life. That was what sustained people throughout their lives, was the sense that their life had a meaning, or that any particular experience has a meaning. So if we think of what this card might portend in a divination, it would be to ask yourself, what is the source of greatest meaning in my life right now? Is it different from what it used to be? Should it be different in the future? Am I claiming it to the degree that I can? This offering of a sense of meaning from the goddess? How can I more fully embrace this gift of meaningfulness that I'm being offered?
Yes, and to that I would add, going back to some of our ideas about the collective, like what is my meaning and purpose in relation to my love for humanity, my love for the world, my love for nature and all beings on this planet. And yeah, that we're being invited to make that connection, and also that there is a culmination taking place or being called towards awakening when this card comes up.
Meaningfulness doesn't exist unless it's in relationship to someone or something.
Yes, yes. True meaning doesn't exist unless it's in relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh, so beautiful. Well, so if this card then came up in reverse, or if it was ill aspected by other cards that were troubling to it, or making it itchy, let's say, what do you think the reversal of this would be?
I think it would mean that someone was out of touch with what's meaningful for them. I think they would be getting told that it's important at this point in our lives to cultivate a more deeply felt relationship with things that they may be only intellectually or conceptually connected to, but that they need to develop a richer felt sense with. A reversed Ten of Cups or ill-aspected Ten of Cups might be a suggestion of asking oneself, what can I do to further develop my emotional intelligence? What can I do to be a better intimate partner? Or what can I do to more fully activate my ability to connect to other people? And ultimately, how can I be of service? Maybe I'm not being, and this card being reversed is telling me, how can I be of greater service in my own particular way to the good of humanity? And that's different for each person. It might mean going out and doing a protest for some person, or it might be for another person sewing N95 masks, or it might be, it's particular and specific for each person.
Yeah, if you look in the little white books, or the sort of Tarot 101 books, they're going to say things like, reverse Ten of Cups means a fallout with your family, or a canceled party, or broken home, or shame, or collective shame, something that's brought about like publicly. And I think that the card always carries the medicine within it, which is always saying, look towards your connection. This is a card of universal love and connection and relationship, and the wisdom of relationship, and how it's about your heart and that heart connection and emotional knowledge, and that you can heal by letting the river of your heart, flow towards more connection or deeper connections with people.
Yeah, beautiful. I think that what you just said is so true, is that the card, even if it's ill aspected, always suggest what the medicine is. And when I was speaking, I was sort of suggesting what the medicine is, and you reminded me that, and some of the traditional interpretations are probably accurate too, or fallout with one's family. That might be a picture of something that's happening. But the medicine the card recommends is, how can I deepen my emotional connection to my family? Or how can I become emotionally more intelligent? How can I improve the way that I connect and listen and understand other people?
Yeah, or if, for instance, it's impossible to become closer to your family, like it's dangerous for you or they don't accept you, that it can also be about extending your reach to a larger family or creating loving connections with people and plants and animals and places that do love you and that are capable of that intimacy with you.
Yeah, that's great. In other words, creating your own family and finding what works as a family for you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so this card in the Little White Books, again, is often referred to as the happily ever after card. And I know you had some thoughts about this idea of happily ever after. I think you'd mentioned something from Michael Meade in our
Yeah, I
conversations
love Michael
before.
Meade, mythologist, and he says that in fairy tales, when they say they lived happily ever after, is a mistranslation, and he suggests that what was really meant was they lived happily in the ever after, or they lived happily in the hereafter. So he was saying that this world was filled with ups and downs and ins and outs and successes and failures, but in the ever after, there is that happiness that abides and sustains. Well, I have a different interpretation. I go a little beyond Michael Meade because I would say that we all have the opportunity to live in the hereafter while we're still alive. We have the potential to cultivate our ability to live part time in the other real world, and certainly we do that every night in our dreams. But and then that could be a starting point. But in a sense, we can develop this ability to know that we always live in two realms. We live in this material world, and we always live in the hereafter. And to the degree that we have that sense that we are always living in the hereafter, our ability to be happy, in quotes, or to have a meaningful life, or to be guided by the goddess in an ongoing way increases. So I would say they lived happily ever after could be about developing that sense that I live in this realm and I live in the other realm, and I'm like Iris. Iris is always serving me. She's going back and forth between the me that's in the other world and me in this world, and she's keeping us connected. And I would like to say this card would represent that potential of living like that, of living in the fullness of this understanding that we live in two realms and that we're always going back and forth and that one needs the other, and the fullness of meaning that we would like to have in our lives can only come through this contact, this connection, this feeding back and forth with Iris, feeding our connection between the two worlds.
Yes, that this card is an invitation to cross the rainbow bridge and go into the lands of, well, what you're talking about with the fairy lands and, the land of in the ever after, which is the fairyland, the land of Tir na Nog or the Summerlands or Avalon.
Yeah.
These are all other words for, the realms beyond death, but that this card is an invitation to cross that rainbow bridge and to go into that realm where that font of renewal, where the goddess's well or sacred spring dwells, and fill our cup from that place and bring it back into this realm where there is suffering and hurt and disconnection. But it's that our connection to that realm, that constant moving in and out of it, which allows us to kind of be happily ever after, in the sense that we get to constantly reaffirm our connection with that. And I wanted to say that your book, Pronoia, which I love and I want all of our readers to get, is like that font of renewal from me. It's like a bubbling fountain, a never-ending bottomless well, because it keeps bubbling up and frothing and gurgling. It's like Old Faithful. It's like a geyser of stories. It's full of prayers to the goddess and joy. And I wanted to read one of the poems from this book, if I may. It's called You Are Almost Everything. May I read that?
Yeah, definitely.
You are almost everything. You taste delicious. Animals understand you. Your importance is unusual. The funny faces you make are interesting to look at. You fight for power in all the right ways. Ecstatic gratitude is pouring out of you. I see the best in you, your divine attitude. You have strong feet and a pioneer heart. No one can overflow as well as you can. You are famous with God. You are famous with me. You are famous with the snakes and the birds and the roses and the pines and the ocean and the earth and the sky. A lost tribe salutes you from the other side of the veil. You remind me of a star. So beautiful. Thank you for that.
Oh, nice reading too. Yeah, that's one of my favorites, and who knows where that came from? Not from any anything in me.
Iris brought it to you across the Rainbow
That's
Bridge.
right. Yes.
But in wrapping up this segment for today, I know that we are running out of time, but I wanted to know, what is the secret of your happiness? Because your work is filled with so much joy, and I think our listeners would love to know where that joy and satisfaction, that satiety, which this card, another word for this card is satiety or satisfaction, where does it come from?
Well, in one way, my happiness comes from the fact that I know that my happiness is meaningless unless I'm working in some way to build the happiness of others. And I think my happiness thrives to the degree that I'm not just manly, but also womanly. In other words, to the degree that I incorporate what I understand to be the divine feminine principle and bring it into my life in really practical ways. And so that means things we talked about before: valuing emotional intelligence, listening well, not being a know-it-all, being willing to be humble and empty and curious, and expressing care and compassion, and not just thinking those things, but every day questioning, how can I do this anew, afresh? How can I do this better than I did it before? I feel equally manly and womanly, and those things working together in me seem to be key to my ability to enjoy life.
I love that and appreciate that about you, Rob. I think that is really the secret of joy. It's about being in connection with all our different parts and aspects. And thank you so much for that. To conclude, I wanted to give our listeners some ideas about how they might incorporate this card into their daily lives. I had some ideas. For instance, collective dancing really comes up in this card, and I wanted to say that Ryan Heffington on Instagram has an amazing dance class every day at 10 a.m. while we're in quarantine, so you should check that out. It'll be in the show notes. Also, wearing rainbows, getting some prisms to hang in your windows and calling the rainbows into your life. Also, you can plant irises, because those are the plants that we use in celebration of the goddess Iris, the messenger goddess. I wanted to leave this session with you, Rob, because you had this amazing idea about using the 10 of Cups as your tutelary deity or your guiding symbol for the day, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about how we might do something like that.
You sent some thoughts in which you gave a visual description of the card, and it was almost like a guided meditation in which one would visualize oneself, one's male and female sides, outside, hearing the river and seeing the green hills and being close to home. And it went on for quite some time, and I really loved that, because I think that the card itself, just looking at the card and visualizing the card and doing the kind of guided visualization you suggested, is medicine. Because your subconscious mind, my subconscious mind, speaks in the language of images, and to the degree that we feed it beautiful images and nourishing images, we can actually lift it up and enable it to function with more integration and sense of meaningfulness. So I was just reminded of that as I contemplated what would it mean to regard the 10 of Cups as my tutelary today, is how crucial it is to to feed my beloved deep psyche joyous images, regardless of what's happening out in the world, regardless of what's happening next door. You always have the power to express love for the deep part of you by sending it these loving, lush, nourishing images. That's a gift you can give yourself every day. And I had kind of fallen out of understanding of that. So that's one of my realizations today, using the Ten of Cups as a tutelary.
Oh, I love it. You're crossing the rainbow bridge to draw from the well of the goddess and filling that well with beautiful images, such as the images from your book and your poem. Well, Rob Brezsny, thank you so much for being on the show. I know that our listeners are probably just rolling their eyes and grinning in ecstasy over this. If they want to find out more about you, what should they do?
Well, my website is freewillastrology.com, freewillastrology.com, and that's always a good place to start. I have lots of social media that's accessible through the website, and probably the next thing would be to check out my book, Pronoia is the Antidote for Paranoia, How the Whole World is Conspiring to Shower You with Blessings. And then the third thing is that I have 2 hours of music on SoundCloud, which is under Sacred Uproar. So people can check that out. And that's also accessible through my website.
Brilliant. And we'll have all of that in the show notes. So, Rob Brezsny, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Amanda. I really enjoyed our conversation. It really meant a lot to me. Thanks, Carolyn.